Most corrupt countries in the world. Number 10. Libya. CPI score, 17. Libya is another country deeply impacted by the Arab Spring years after the initial uprising broke out in 2011. After the deposition of its leader, Muammar Gaddafi, Libya collapsed into civil unrest among various factions. The turmoil has since weakened the country's political system, allowing for corruption to go unchecked. Pair that with ineffective corruption monitoring and the complicity of political figures, and you have one of the most corrupt countries in the world. Number 9. North Korea. CPI score, 17. Not much is known about North Korea by the outside world due to its intense dictatorial, totalitarian regime. This has led to a lack of transparency on food security and human rights, which in turn has allowed corruption to become widespread. Although North Korea's ruler, Kim Jong-un, has vowed to mercilessly deal with the scourge of corruption, graft has been entrenched in the country since the 1990s. A Trace International report ranked North Korea last on a list of 194 countries. This is after the country scored quite high in risk for 4 key indicators, notably on civil society oversight capacity and the expectations of business-to-government bribes. Number 8. Haiti. CPI score, 17. Haiti has been in a social crisis since the deadly earthquake in 2010. The country has not recovered from the economic and infrastructural devastation caused by the disaster. Since 2011, corruption has hollowed out state coffers. Organized and armed gangs have expanded their territory of control, and political stability has worsened, culminating in the assassination of former President Jovenel Moïse in July 2021. Number 7. Equatorial Guinea. CPI score, 17. Equatorial Guinea's corruption problems stem from an authoritarian government that sees the president and his close network of elites live lavishly off the country's oil revenue. Mismanagement of funds and no rule of law has led to rampant corruption and arbitrary detentions, torture, and unfair trials. In 2021, a French court found the president's son and vice president of Equatorial Guinea, Teodoro Obiang Meng, guilty on embezzlement charges. He was most guilty of flaunting his wealth on social media. He owned a Rolls-Royce Phantom, 2 Bentleys, a Maybach, a Porsche, a Ferrari, a Maserati, and 2 Bugattis. Number 6. Burundi. CPI score, 17. Despite many efforts towards transparency and good governance, corruption is still rampant in Burundi. This is because corruption is systematic in the country. Bootleg activities like bribery and cronyism trickled down from high-ranking officials to street-level public employees. Burundi's ruling party's neo-patrimonialism policies have reduced the country to low-level government rankings, which have turned foreign investment and caused social discontent. The country's failure to fight corruption in political and social settings keeps Burundi high on this list. Number 5. Yemen. CPI score, 16. Yemen's 9-year-long civil war has often been dubbed a proxy war between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Whether that's true or not, the conflict in Yemen has created a humanitarian crisis, and children are the most affected. Over 500,000 children under 5 years suffer from severe malnutrition, and a child under 5 dies every 10 minutes due to preventative causes. The war has led to a lack of government accountability and a non-existent system of control. Patronage networks run the country's civil affairs, leading to extensive numbers of ghost workers, which puts an increased strain on the state's budget. This network also oversees government contracts and often exploits small businesses through arbitrary fines. Number 4. Venezuela. CPI score, 14. Possessing over 300 billion barrels of oil, Venezuela's wealth in oil and other natural resources has led to political upheaval, a socio-economic crisis, and corruption. Venezuela's food insecurity, overcrowding, and deteriorating infrastructure exasperated the situation. Government officials and their family members have been accused of participating in illicit crimes such as drug trafficking. Some of these ill-gotten funds are alleged to have ended up supporting President Maduro's 2013 presidential campaign. Number 3. Syria. CPI score 13. The Syrian civil war broke out as part of a larger movement across the Middle East and North Africa. The Arab Spring was the genesis of the ongoing conflict in Syria between the military and insurgent forces. The war has led to an influx of funds and arms to opposing forces and relief from international institutions. But these relief funds have often become mismanaged thanks to corrupt officials. The most prevalent forms of corruption in Syria include bribery and soliciting. Number 2, South Sudan. CPI score 13. Despite being the youngest country in the world, South Sudan's governmental leaders have been accused of the same level of graft as the most corrupt countries in the world. This oil-rich country became a republic on the 9th of July, 2011. But it soon descended into civil war in December 2013. Corruption by government officials has thrived under these conditions. Sudan's leaders are said to have diverted over $74 million in the last 2 years. The president, Salva Kiir, admitted to over $4 billion being looted from the state since 2012 through patronage, embezzlement, and bureaucratic corruption. Number 1, Somalia. CPI score 12. Ongoing conflict, insecurity, and lack of a central government have kept Somalia in the world's top 3 most corrupt countries in the world for the last 2 years. Pair that with an infamous culture of piracy, and you have a crisis on your hands. Corruption has a lot to do with these socio-economic issues that affect locals and tourists alike. According to a United Nations report, over 70% of Somalia's government assets had been exploited and diverted for private gains.